All right, so I'm going to be heading down to Santa Clara here in a little bit. Today, the 49ers are making available the non-coordinators, the position coaches on the staff. So let me know in the comments section who you'd like to hear from. First person that comes to mind probably is Gus Bradley joining the 49ers staff this offseason. And so I know he had an opportunity several years ago to come work for the 49ers, and he turned that down, went to the Chargers instead. So he's one guy, maybe Mick Lombardi, the new quarterbacks coach, getting elevated to that position. But yeah, any position coaches that you want to hear from and that you want to learn more about, drop that in the comments section. What I'm going to talk about today is the state of the 49ers defensive line because all this offseason, from the first day of the offseason, or I should say of the new league year, when the 49ers released Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, we talked a lot about how the team's biggest need was the defensive line. And now, obviously, it's not the biggest need. And, most of the work that can be done as far as the roster building is already completed. 49ers might still have some opportunities to add players, but right now, the defensive line is in pretty good shape. And the latest acquisition is Bryce Huff coming over from the Eagles in a trade. 49ers will pick up about $8 million of that salary for this season. And the trade, both teams announced a mid-round pick, quote unquote, mid-round pick. Both the Eagles and the 49ers announced that that was a compensation. Well, I don't know the details on what has to happen in order for the pick to change, but it is a conditional fifth round pick that can move into a fourth round pick. So I'm imagining there's, individual markers that if Bryce Huff hits, that fifth round pick will go to a fourth round pick. And that pretty much is keeping in line with what we talked about last week with the 49ers getting a lot more free agent losses than gains in March. So the 49ers are set up to receive three compensatory picks in the 2026 draft. And according to overthecap.com, those picks would be potentially two fourth round picks and one fifth round pick. So that really goes in line with the 49ers looking at their compensatory haul for next year and saying, why wait until next year to take advantage of that? Get a veteran player now. So Bryce Huff comes to the 49ers. And like I talked about, the defensive line, I wouldn't say, there aren't like superstars other than Nick Bosa. But the defensive line is just in considerably better shape than it was a short time ago. So here's, and I think there will be competition certainly for those jobs on the defensive line. But right now, when you look at the starters, I would think Nick Bosa and Michael Williams would be the starting ends, and then the starting defensive tackles, more than likely Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins. But the thing to kind of at as well is those are the openers. Who are going to be the closers? Who are going to be the guys that are out there on the field on those key third downs to rush the passer in the fourth quarter? And that's where I think the 49ers have to kind of figure out. And this a lot of this will fall into place just by how well these guys are playing or how not well these guys are playing. But it can really be wide open. And think about this pass rush foursome. Bosa on one end, Bryce Huff on the other end, and then the inside guys rushing Etor Gross Matos and Michael Williams. So I don't know if the 49ers want to move Michael Williams around a whole lot, but when they drafted him, they talked about his ability to set the edge in the run game on base downs and then even potentially move inside and rush the passer. So there is an opportunity there for some guys to really step up and make a huge contribution. Bryce Huff is very much, you don't know exactly what you're getting with him. Now, Robert Saleh coming over from the Jets, he had Bryce Huff there, and clearly he wanted him. He comes, Huff does, to the 49ers. with that kind of recommendation um, from Robert Saleh. Bryce Huff had always been around 2 sacks a year. That's basically been his career. Two and a half, 3 sacks per season. The outlier was in 2023 when he recorded 10 sacks that season. He parlayed that into a significant contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, 3 years, 51.1 million. Last year, he struggled with injuries, didn't produce when he was on the field. Why is that? I don't know. There's some thought about him being misused, that he really is a situational pass rusher. His forte is to just go after the quarterback, not have to worry about setting the edge, not have to worry about run fits. It's about getting after the quarterback. But for a guy who is supposed to be a really good pass rusher, the numbers just haven't bared that out. So 49ers are looking to take advantage of that and just kind of lower his workload to a point where he can just line up wide nine and go get the quarterback. So let's take a little look at the 49ers defensive line and that rotation as it's set up right now. So the defensive ends, talked about Nick Bosa and Michael Williams. Yetur Gross-Matos is kind of considered a base defensive end, and he's a starter. Before the draft, several weeks before the draft, Kyle Shanahan said that of all the guys on the defensive line, he considered Yetur Gross-Matos kind of, of the guys who were on the team at that point, he considers him a significant, a legitimate starting defensive lineman. So Gross-Matos would be the third defensive end on the 49ers rotation, and then Bryce Huff would be somebody to rush the passer. So the way I kind of look at it would be if you're looking for somebody to set the edge on base downs, that would be Yetur Gross-Matos would be the first guy off the sideline. If you're looking for someone to rush the passer, that would be Bryce Huff. The other guys the 49ers will be looking to and will be competing for a spot in the rotation would be Sam Okawanu and Robert Beal. Clearly, I don't think both of those guys are going to make the team. Both of those guys are going to be challenged to make the team. Right now, the rosters are at 90. Of course, the regular season starts and the rosters go to 53 players. Okay, now the defensive tackle position, and this is an area where the 49ers help themselves out with the selection of two defensive tackles in the draft. Obviously, Alfred Collins, and then in the fourth round, CJ West. So Jordan Elliott is somebody who's been around. He's the defensive lineman, the defensive tackle the 49ers kept on the roster this year. And so I would think that Jordan Elliott would be a starter with Alfred Collins as a 330-pound run stuffer. And if you haven't already, check out the 49ers Talk podcast. Chris Sims of NBC Sports, obviously a former Texas Longhorn, spoke a lot about Alfred Collins and said that he really thought that that was a great pick for the 49ers there in the second round. And the way the 49ers approached this draft was that they thought they had a chance and they thought that, if things lined up pretty well for them, they could get Michael Williams in the first round and Alfred Collins in the second. You know, um, I don't know. I don't think that's revisionist history, but that's how they kind of envisioned the draft going, and that's exactly how it turned out. And so the other defensive tackles, CJ West, as I mentioned, is somebody who has an opportunity to play a significant role as a rotational player for the 49ers defensive line. And who knows, maybe even work into a starting lineup. If he comes around as a rookie, probably a little bit more of a project and just kind of finding his way, fitting into the 49ers defense. The other defensive tackles, Kevin Givens, who's been a rotational player first time with the 49ers, kind of a reliable guy. Certainly probably not a starter caliber defensive lineman, but somebody who can fit in and kind of keep the ball rolling, not be a liability on the defensive line as a rotational player. And then the other guys that the 49ers will be competing for jobs on the 53 man, Kalia Davis and Evan Anderson. So, obviously there's a lot of other defensive linemen on the roster, some lesser known guys, but there are opportunities for roster spots to be had. So, um, the last two guys I mentioned, Kalia Davis and Evan Anderson, probably in the same situation as Beal and Okawanu, guys who will be fighting for roster spots and, in their best case scenario, fighting for opportunities to join that defensive line rotation. So I don't know that I would consider the 49ers defensive line one of the better defensive lines in the NFL. Probably nothing quite of that nature, but it is a good defensive line. And if these young guys can really step up and make a contribution from day one, it could turn out to be better than just good. But seeing where the 49ers have come from, where they were, whatever, a month and a half ago before the draft to where they are now, they have made significant strides by adding four players to their defensive line who should be not only on the 53 man, but should be rotational players. And so by adding those four, the bottom four kind of fall off. And that right there accounts for how the 49ers have improved their defensive line. So I don't know that they're finished as far as looking to the trade market. They still have some draft capital. Again, don't know that anything is imminent. I've heard that they are keeping their eyes open for those kinds of situations, but this June 1 move to add Bryce Huff, I knew that they were in the market for a veteran guy that a team would want to get rid of after June 1 for salary cap purposes. The other thing to keep an eye on too, and again, this is for down the road, but middle of the season when it's trading deadline, uh, the 49ers do have the draft capital to go out and make a midseason move. And they have done this in the past with certain players. Most recently, Chase Young, obviously Christian McCaffrey, but also Emmanuel Sanders. They have that opportunity to also, add a player final year of the contract, and then by even if they don't plan to sign that player to a contract after the season's over, they still have the compensatory formula working to their advantage. Of course, that compensatory pick that they could get by a midseason acquisition wouldn't show up in the 2026 draft. It would be in the 2027 draft. So there's a quick rundown of how the 49ers have approached the defensive line and a look at the possible rotation of players that has been greatly improved over the last couple months through the draft and then the trade to pick up Bryce Huff from the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment, a like, and that is it for now.